Live from Studio 304 in the KCOC Student Center, deep in the heart of Kaufman, Texas, it's The Tonight Show, starring Chris Dow. Tonight, join Chris and special guest Mike Avery. Mike is a good friend of Chris and has been a youth minister in Houston for 20 years. Together, he and Chris has built some of the most epic soul link sets. Mike is here tonight to share his journey of faith with you. And now, here he is, your host, Chris Dow!
Hey! Good evening! What's up? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. Y'all excited? Y'all seem like you're asleep. Are you excited? Yeah! Alright, that's better. Alright, so we're back. Had a little bit of a break last week. Didn't have a show last Wednesday because of the Fall Fest, but we are back. Episode 3 of the new series. So, gonna be a good night. Glad you're here. You made a good decision to be here. We got a lot of good things going on. But as we get started, here's a few things that people are talking about. So last week, we had a lot of fun up here despite the nasty weather outside. A lot of warm, fun activities going on in here. We had all the games and food and all that in the gym and the trunk or treat out in the fellowship hall, and just a lot of good people, good times, good stuff going on. But Todd, what was your favorite part of the Fall Festival?
Of course, it was the Frito pie and the chili dogs.
Frito pie and the chili dogs. So I think I'm still feeling the Frito pie and chili dogs. So I think my favorite part was probably the trust game, the trust activity, trust building game. So
where was that at?
I was in the gym, like right in the middle of the gym.
I must have missed that one.
Yeah, they had a table set up, and if you want to do the trust activity, you just you sit down at this table, and then you trust a student to draw stuff on your face. If you really wanted to take it to the next level, you could sit down and buddy up with someone and trust your friend to draw something on your face. See the next picture there, the finished products. There you go.
Definitely improvements.
Yes, yeah. I think they both lost that game.
Yeah. Probably lost, but there's still an improvement.
Yeah, I think the best part was Drew was unable to wash the black paint out of his eyebrows. So they're still a little dark even this week. So, but then Thursday was Halloween. Beautiful day. The rain stopped, but then right about the time it was time to hit the streets and do some trick-or-treating, it got incredibly cold.
Yeah,
temperature dropped crazy. But we still, we got dressed up and headed to Houston Street with the rest of Kaufman to do some trick-or-treating. And typically, last few years, we've, as a family, kind of done a family group costume type deal. And this year, Presley wanted to be Princess Jasmine, so she dressed up as Jasmine, and I have to get creative with my costumes because there's only so many characters with white beards, but thankfully, I was able to break out the duct tape and hot glue and make a Sultan costume, so I was Jasmine's dad, the Sultan, with a white beard. I think we have a picture of that up there. There we go. Stephanie was Raja, the pet tiger of the household, so we had Houston Street, did that, and I think it turned out pretty good for a last-minute DIY costume. The problem was, if you took me out of the context of Presley and Stephanie, it was a little difficult to tell exactly who I was. So, and as it got darker, Presley, closed up her jacket, and then there was actually one point that I left them at one of the houses, and then I hiked by myself, which was a huge mistake, with all of the stuff back to the car to get the car and drive it closer. Halfway there, I realized I looked really creepy because one, people couldn't tell what I was, and two, I was carrying Presley's genie lamp and her bucket of candy. So I just looked like an old man that had gone trick-or-treating, and no one knew who I was because they didn't have the context to put it together. So So yeah, people thought I was a wide variety of things. So one person, I guess because I was carrying the lamp, thought that I was the genie from Aladdin.
Right movie, wrong character.
Yeah, right movie, wrong character, which I don't know if they've seen the movie since they got me confused with the genie.
I thought you were the genie.
What do you think I'm the genie? He's in the cartoon. He's blue.
I don't know. I thought you were just going with the beard.
All right,
There you go. He's even blue in the
yeah, he's in the new movie. He's blue, though. It's like
It changes.
I don't know. But someone else thought I was one of the wise men bringing gifts to Jesus. So I was like, all right, I can go with that. One person thought I was God. Don't know where that came from. So, but I could hear people murmuring as I go by, like, what was that? And like, I don't know, maybe he was God.
I think you were too tall for this old.
Too tall for this old movie. I need to be shorter. And then I think my favorite one, and I actually saw this group twice. There was this little group of kids, and they were dressed up. Well, not little. I mean, they were, I don't know, about knee high or so. But they were dressed as clowns, and they were trying to scare people. Like they were kind of scary. So as you walk past them, they'd like jump at you, like lunge at you. And so they did that to me twice. But the first time they come by, like this kid like jumps at me, and they all laugh. And as they go by, one of them goes, "Wait, was that Jesus?" So my response is like, you should probably figure that out before you try to scare somebody. It's like, wait, that's Jesus. I probably shouldn't scare him. That could end me in bad places. So, but yeah, so it was a good night. We had a lot of fun. We got a great show tonight. Y'all stick around. It's going to be a good night, everybody. So we got a great show tonight, everybody. We're excited. Again, this is the third show of the new season. We got some great shows ahead. It's going to be a good season. Y'all keep coming back week after week. A lot of good stuff coming up.
Chris, I'm noticing it may just be the white beard or whatnot, but I feel like you're moving a little slower today.
Yeah, I am a little sore and stiff today. I had a bit of an accident last night. So
What happened?
Well, as you know, I've spent the last week going through intern resumes and doing phone interviews, and then I was in Abilene yesterday interviewing several candidates in person. And so I was on my way home and coming through Fort Worth, and where the interchanges coming into Arlington, everyone was slowing down, so I, started slowing down. And then a guy decided he needed to go the other way, so he cut over in front of the car in front of me and then slammed on his brakes. So then we all stopped really quickly, except for the guy in the new jacked up F-150 behind me, and he slammed into the back of my truck. So it was a bad place to stop. Couldn't stop, and so I started creeping forward, and I look in the back, and like his bumper is like hanging off, his grill guard's hanging down, like off-road lights hanging out everywhere, and I'm thinking like the back of my truck's just demolished. And so we get over on the shoulder and creep up. I make sure he follows me because I was like, I do not want this guy taking off on me. And so I get out and I start walking to the back of the truck, bracing myself for what it's going to look like. And he gets out and he's like really aggravated and mad because he already knows his truck is like demolished. And he gets out and he's like, "Don't worry, it didn't do anything to you." And I'm like, "What?" And so I come around the back of my truck, not even a scratch on my bumper. I mean, his grill is smashed in. The bumper is like rubbing on his big oversized off-road tires, all this stuff.
Wow, that's crazy.
And and not a scratch on my truck. So then I feel bad, because I tore up his new shiny custom truck. Yeah, but that's the benefits of driving an older truck. When they made them out of crazy things like metal. So I hung out for a little bit, and he had a tow strap, and so he's like, "Could you help me with my bumper?" And so he hooked a tow strap up to his bumper and like hooked it up to mine, and so we're on the side of I-20 with 18-wheelers blowing past, and I'm trying to like listen to him, and he's like edging me forward. I'm trying to like stretch, bend it off with his tire, but not rip it off, and then all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up. And so I just pull it out of my pocket and throw it in the seat. And so I get him all situated. I get back in. I have like 3 missed phone calls and all these text messages. Well, apparently there was a group of other youth ministers that I know from Houston that were coming back from Abilene and drove past like at the same time. And either between me looking like Santa Claus or recognizing my truck, they were like, "I think that was Chris back there on the side of the road." Yeah, none of them stopped. Well, like I say, it was like rush hour traffic. It's dark, and like there was no way to get pulled off the side of the road easily. So I did not want to be stopped there. So they were calling to make sure I was okay and wasn't broken down or something, because I do drive an older truck. So like maybe he broke down.
That is kind of a crazy night.
Yeah, it was crazy stuff. So now speaking of crazy, we have a few boxes left. We announced this a few weeks ago. We have a game that we will play sometime this season called Box of Lies, and we need y'all to create some crazy sculptures, just some sort of random items hot glued together or whatever, or just something odd, I don't know, a Lego nativity scene, I don't know, something weird and unexpected. Don't tell me what it is, don't tell anybody what it is, but make it, put it in the box, seal the box up, and come turn it in. There's a couple more boxes stacked up back there. If you want one, take one. If you have one already, make sure you get those back. Not sure when we'll play that game, but I haven't scheduled it because we don't have the boxes back. But we'll play a game with that. No food items or anything that will go bad, because again, it may be several weeks before we play this, and it would be even harder to decide what it is that you've made if you made it out of food. But it's a fun game. We played it last season. We have to look at it and then describe it to the other person, and they have to decide if we're lying about it or telling the truth. So the more outlandish, the better. But yeah, so that's a little fun project. You can do that. We got a great season ahead of us, a lot more fun games, a lot more great guests. Tonight, my good friend Mike Avery is stopping by the show, and later we are going to play a game called Pumpkin or Spice. So all that and more right after the break. Y'all stick around.
The bounty of Earth. This is the cube of Rubik. This simple puzzle was actually considered unsolvable by the humans.
Do they not have brains?
Simple ones. Now, this was apparently a 21st century torture device.
How long would they keep them strapped in there?
Sometimes hours at a time. Pretty gruesome. And over here we have their alphabet. It was called emoji. Few symbols could express the vast extent of their emotion. They had chia pets, just like we do. And this is the white and gold dress that caused the Civil War. This is Scott Baio. Anybody want to feed Scott Baio? It's included in the price of admission. No?
I mean, he double dipped. He'll regenerate.
No, he won't. He was a quad moker.
So our guest tonight is a real good friend of mine from Houston. He's been the youth minister at the Memorial Church of Christ down there for over 20 years, and he and I together have built some really crazy stuff during my 8.5 years down there in Houston. We really got to know each other, really good friends. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Mr. Mike Avery. Glad you made it.
It's a roller coaster ride.
Roller coaster ride. I know. I've been there. So drove that road yesterday myself. So So thank you very much for coming tonight, all the way up from Houston, and joining the show. So you and your staff are actually in Dallas
Yes.
for the Right Now Media Conference. How's that going?
It's going great. I got to hear some good speakers today. Matt Chandler was talking about patience. It was awesome, man. It's going great.
Good deal. So drive up to Dallas was okay?
It was fine.
Not going to ask how driving through Dallas was coming here at rush hour.
Well, I actually had to ride here in an Uber, and the guy was like gas and brake happy, so I'm a little nauseous right now. So I could puke at any time.
Well, that's good. That will come in handy for the game at the end of the night.
All right.
So we'll get some spiciness to settle your stomach. So
I'm ready for it.
nothing settles the stomach like a little habanero sauce. So.
Sounds great. Get on.
So as Mike shares with us tonight, we want to invite you to also join in the conversation. So as Mike shares his story, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can text those in, and he and I will be answering those later in the show. To join that conversation, you can text Chris Dowell 82 to 37607. So once you text that in, it'll give you a message saying that you've joined the group, and then you can text questions in from that. If you don't have a texting device, you can quietly use your neighbors to send your question. And like I say, at the end of the show, after our next commercial break, we will get around to answering those questions. So Mike, as we get rolling, want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit so they get to know you a little bit before we jump into the full life story and all that. So as I mentioned earlier, you're married. So you and Melissa married how long now?
We've been married, next month it'll be 21 years.
21 years. Awesome. And then you'll have two kids?
We do. We have a son, Matthew. He is a freshman, and he's rolling up on his 15th birthday here pretty soon. And daughter, Meredith, she is 12.
All right.
And so we're blessed with two wonderful children.
All right, awesome. So what do you and the family enjoy doing?
Well, we like to do lots of things together outside. We like to go on trips. We like to travel. And we love to eat my wife's cooking.
Yeah.
It's delicious. And we love to just do different things to help other people out. It's a lot of fun doing that together.
Awesome. So now you've been doing youth ministry for 20 years now. So and all at Memorial.
Miracles still happen.
That is crazy. So 20 years doing youth ministry is a big deal. 20 years doing youth ministry at the same church is a huge deal. So that's really good. So why don't you share a little bit about your childhood growing up and maybe some of the things that maybe pointed you in the direction of ministry. So.
Sure. Well, when I was growing up, my parents were both very active in the church and involved. They didn't believe in just sitting on the pew or whatever. So my mom was involved in the children's ministry, and my dad, he drove a church van around and picked up the widows that couldn't drive and would take them to church. And they would always pinch my cheeks and give me little pieces of candy, which was okay because we didn't get to eat lunch till 1 o'clock, taking them home. But the best part was my dad would, after we dropped off the last widow, of course, he'd sometimes let me sit in his lap and drive the church van back to the church. So can't get away with that now.
No, I remember those days though. So
but that really pointed me in the direction of just knowing that that we're supposed to be serving and things like that, and led me in that direction. Going active in youth group, I became a Christian in early high school, but it was later on in college where I really got my, I guess God pointed me into ministry.
Okay.
So.
All right. You went to ACU.
I did. I started out at junior college, though.
Okay.
I was kind of working my way through college, paying for it. I came from a blended family with 6 kids, and my dad was like, "Here's $500, good luck." So I kind of made my way through college, working and paying for it, and I got involved in the campus ministry there at the junior college. And while I was there, started studying the Bible with the campus minister, and studied a lot of Paul's letters. And before, I guess my focus was to get rich. Wanted to be rich, wanted to be a stockbroker. I was a business major, and wanted to drive nice cars and do all that. And but through studying the Bible, I realized from Paul's life, man, my life didn't really look like the kind of Christian that was described there in his letters. And God convicted me through that, and to a life change, and just realizing that being a Christian wasn't about showing up at church and putting on a good face and maybe trying to do good, but really it was just a life, a way of life all the time, sacrificing your own desires for God's. And so when I came to this realization, when God just kind of smacked me there in that moment with the word, I thought to myself, man, I grew up in the church and I missed this. How did I miss this? Because I went to all the youth things, mission trips and camps and all that. And I said, how many more kids are going to miss out on this? And I was like, I have to be a youth minister. And that was the beginning of my journey into full-time ministry. And man, I'm still so stoked to do it every day. Awesome. I love teenagers. I love hanging out with them and teaching them about Christ. So
very cool. Very cool. So, and then, so some part of our connection, when you were at ACU, you were the second pledge class of Pi Kappa.
That's
and that was the same club that I pledged when I got there a few years later. And so then whenever I got down to Houston and started doing youth ministry down there, it was actually some of those guys are like, hey, you look up Mike Avery, he's in club and, he'll get you set up. And so I kind of sought you out a little bit when I got down there, and I heard about this, area-wide youth ministries meeting thing. And they're like, it's a memorial, and this guy named Mike runs. I was like, I've been trying to get a hold of Mike, and so I went, and it was kind of crazy. It took me a while to kind of build up the courage to go. I'm not like a real go out there type deal. So I went, and I thought I was early when I got to the first meeting, and I don't know if you remember this or not. So I walk into Memorial, and so I walk through the doors, and I look over, and there's this group of youth ministers sitting in the room, like already in this meeting. And I'm like, man, I'm late. And like my worst thing, like I don't like walking in someplace late, especially if it's my first time. Like I don't want people to draw attention to me. And so, but like you're already going to the meeting. So like I open the doors and I go in and sit down and like try to get caught up on what's going on. And then a few minutes later, the meeting ended. And I found out it was actually the Soul Link board meeting. And I just like walked in on it. Like I was like, oh, that's the youth ministers. I guess that's where I'm supposed to be. So I walked in on this meeting I wasn't supposed to be at. Didn't know y'all met beforehand. But y'all were talking about like set stuff. And so I was like, well, I like to build stuff. And so then we ended up building sets together for Soul Link. And I think that's what really drove our relationship deeper was the ridiculous stuff that we came up with to build. And as the things got more and more ridiculous, the work weeks and nights got longer and longer. So there was a few times that I think we saw each other more than we saw our spouses or our offices.
What were we thinking?
I don't know. Yeah.
Hey, you remember that time you saved my life?
Vaguely, we were very sleep deprived.
So there was this one time when we were trying to like move this mechanism up, and it was very heavy, and I had to balance it on this piece of wood, this board. And I was on one end of it.
We weren't planning on doing it that way, so it was like a scrap piece of twig that we found out in the dumpster to use.
Yes, and so I was on one end and Chris was on the other. It was on a hinge, right? And so I
was up on the lift.
You were.
Like 20 feet up in the air.
We were way up in there. I was on the ladder, maybe?
The platform. Platform there, yeah.
So I'm pushing this board up, and it weighs a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Like, enough to hurt me.
More than it should.
Yeah, and the board slips off, and this big beam is swinging towards my face, and it's going to probably kill me. And Chris is really high in the air, like 20 feet up, and he jumps up in the air and grabs the other end of the beam with his fingertips.
Yeah, it's like a teeter-totter type deal.
And he held it until I could get the board back on.
Yeah, I was like hanging, like, my feet were off this little basket thing.
So let's give a hand to Chris, right? Lifesaver, yeah.
more out of desperation. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. He and I were the only ones there, and I wasn't going to be able to get it reset by myself. So it was I had no choice but to save you. I still needed you.
The blood on the gallows would have looked cool.
That would have really sold it. You know, the dead guy laying up there in the corner. Yes, crazy times. So we had a lot of fun building that stuff and doing that and really getting to know one another that way and just talking about life and ministry and just all those good things that way. Now I remember there was one time we would build all this stuff, but then afterwards they would just store it. Well, now they just like throw it away, but for a long time they stored it. So then there was one year we had the idea, we're like, we should get our youth groups together and anyone else that wants to come, and we should burn all of the old props. Because they were like, we knew they were about to throw them away, and we're like, instead of throwing them away, we should burn them. And so we created this event, I think we call it like Souls Ablaze or Souls on Fire or something, I don't know, some spinoff of Soul Link. And we built this massive bonfire. The problem was we drove up to Vanville to get all the stuff, and the maintenance guy had thrown it away already. One of which was a dumpster.
Yes.
That we built. So
it's kind of ironic. He threw away a dumpster.
Yeah. I wanted to be there when the trash company came to throw the dumpster away. But so then our youth groups like scoured the streets, like finding like old furniture and stuff that people had thrown away, and we amassed this bonfire that was, I don't know, probably as big around as the stage and probably 10 feet tall. And we lit it with a flaming arrow. And then the fire department showed up because they got calls that there was a house on fire. And they get up there and there's like 200 teens out in the middle of this field, singing "I Will Call Upon the Lord," or we were probably singing "Light the Fire." Let's be real. So, so that was good times. I think that was when I was still down in Alvin out there, and then I moved up to West Houston. And we had another cool connection. One, I live closer to you because you actually live closer to West Houston than I did, even though you worked at Memorial. But I got to meet your mom. Your mom was a member at West Houston. Why don't you share a little bit about that part of your story there?
So later, when I was at ACU, another part of my faith journey was my mom called me and she said, "Hey, I've been diagnosed with cancer." And that was a scary time for me and for her and our family. And I guess I like to be in control and fix things. Somebody says they have a problem, I'm like, oh, well, here's the solution, ABC, right? But at this point, I realized, like, the doctors, she was at MD Anderson in Houston. It's like a really good cancer hospital. And for like 6 weeks, they couldn't figure out what exact kind of cancer she had. And then when they finally came around to it, they're like, oh, well, it's like stage 4, you're not going to live much longer. And I remember coming to my brothers in the club, and I was like, man, I'm so upset because, it's out of my hands. I can't do anything. It doesn't matter how much money I had or whatever. We're at the best hospital, she's not, it's out of my control. And so my brothers, they took me up to the science building roof, which we weren't supposed to be up there, but hey. And like 80 guys surrounded me. And for the next 2 hours, they just individually prayed over me and my mom and my family. And but my mom had treatment and she went into remission and she got to live another 14 years, which was amazing. She got to see me and my brother finish school and get married, and all but one of her grandkids was born. And so that really was a big impact on my life because it helped me become more prayerfully dependent on God and not just relying on myself. And that was a blessing through that trial. And eventually the cancer came back, and I was basically the sole caretaker for my mom for 9 months. And my family, we actually moved in with her the last 3 months of her life and took care of her until she passed away. And when she passed, before she died, she said, "Hey, I want to be cremated and my ashes buried with my family at the cemetery." And I'm like, okay, so follow the wish. So I go, we do all the things, and we get to the funeral home, and they're like, they're like, well, you have to have an urn. And I was like, okay, well, what do you have? And they're like, well, we have this cheap plastic one that's $50. And I was like, no way, I can build one nicer than that. And if I can, I have a friend that can. So then Chris and I, we hung out on a Friday night or some night, I don't remember, and he helped me build this amazing urn for my mother. It was really cool, and that was a good moment for sure.
It was.
I appreciate you being there for me in that time.
Yeah. So it's just to have that connection and those people during those times.
Yeah.
And then it kind of had the flip flop of that. A few years back. And Stephanie and I lost Braden, and you were the first people I called, and then sharing in those moments together, in that time of prayer and being there for one another in those times, and so a lot of formative times in our relationship, and then just through ministry and those times that you've been with your students and all the things that wide variety of things and times that you've journeyed with them down those difficult roads as well. And I remember I stayed at I think it was, I don't know, for a Soul Link meeting or something that I was in Houston for, and stayed at your house, and we were up talking and about to go way later than we should have been, and about to go to bed, and your phone rang, and one of your students had been shot. And so in the middle of the night, we packed up and went to the hospital to see this kid and his family, and go through that. And it was just those moments in ministry that just happen, and to be there for the students, and to be able to one, you having the life experience that you have, to be able to kind of join them on that road and know what they're going through, and talk with them and lead them through that. But just some really good deep times that we've had together, and really value, respect, and appreciate our friendship, all that over the years. So what else would you like to share with our students? And you share with students on a daily basis, but just from your experience and life, and what else would you like to share with us tonight?
Yeah, so one part of the story growing up I left out is when I was 10, my parents got a divorce, and I ended up living with my dad, and getting to see my mom a couple times a month, and that was a really tough time. I don't know, maybe some of you guys have been through something like that, or you have friends that have. And I remember just asking God over and over, why did this happen? Why am I going through this terrible thing? And I didn't get that answer for a long time. It was about exactly 13 years when I figured it out. There were some good things that came from that beforehand. Like I started looking to other adults in the church that had good marriages, and kind of thinking that's how I want to be with my spouse when I'm older. And it made me very convicted in my own marriage, because I didn't want my own kids or my own wife or me to feel the things I saw my parents experiencing. But I didn't really get the answer to it until 13 years later, when I became a youth minister, and I walked into this youth group, and there were kids in there that their parents had just gone through a divorce. And I was able to immediately empathize with them, and I knew what they were going through, and I could tell them, don't use this as a crutch or an excuse to not continue pursuing God with all your heart in your life. And and there's hope, and there's life on the other side of this. And so I guess what I would say to you guys is that when you're going through a hard time, God will use that to increase your faith, to grow you, to stretch you, and to give you empathy and compassion for other people who are hurting. And it might not be the exact same scenario that you went through, but to know how to deal with hard times and rely on God, and that you're not alone, that's amazing. And God will use those hard times in your life to bless you and to help you to bless others. And you know what makes it even sweeter is, as Christians, we have the gift of the church, that we aren't all by ourselves. We have our brothers and sisters, and just listening to Chris share those times when we literally went through death together in our families. But there's a scripture in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9, and it says, 2 are better than one, for they have a good return for their work, right? And it goes on to talk about how when there's 2 together, if one falls, the other one can help them up, right? And but the man who's alone, he doesn't have anyone to help him up. And so I would encourage you guys to really not take for granted the people around you. Sure, you may not always get along with them, or they may have a different personality than you. But one thing we all have in common is that we love Christ, right? And He loves us so much. And we need to carry each other's burdens and help each other through those hard times. And they'll be doing that for us as well. So that's probably what I would say for this.
Working together in that unity is one of those, God brings us together for a reason.
Yes.
And in those times that, in the good times, it's always fun to have other people around. But we really cherish those relationships in those bad times and those hard times, and having those people that can keep us looking heavenward, keep our eyes focused on God, and be those arms of comfort and those voices of encouragement and strength. And God really just puts those right people in the right place when we need them. So cherish those relationships that you have. Build good relationships. Build strong and deep relationships, because they will take you a long way in this world. So, well, we got some questions rolling in here, and so if you have more, keep sending those in to us. But we're going to get to those and talk a little bit more after this commercial break. So y'all stick around.
Mike, what is your deal, man?
Come on, man. You've been riding me all day.
Mike, you're playing like Betty White out there.
Yes,
Eat a Snickers. Better?
Better. Mike! I'm on base!
That hurt. Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-woo!
Ronnie, how happy are students to go to after-school break time?
I'd say happier than a camel on Wednesday.
Hump day?
Get happy. Get after-school break time every Wednesday after school.
We are back. So before the break, Mike shared a little bit about his story through life and some of the things that he has been through, and talked about some of the things that we've journeyed through together. And y'all been sending in some questions, so we'll get to those. One of those was, how long have y'all known each other? I guess I got to Alvin in 2006, so about 13 years ago. So 13 years. So I guess we've known each other. So there you go. So another one asking, how old are you?
I am 44.
44. Still.
Did you meet Chris?
Well, we already talked about how we met. So we met at we met at a youth ministers meeting. So once a month, all the youth ministers in Houston would gather together, and Mike's church would host that. And we would. It started out, one of the colleges would come and buy us lunch, and so we throw free food out there. Youth ministers are going to show up.
Exactly.
So we'd have lunch together, usually fajitas. And then we would sit around and talk about area-wide stuff and all that. And so that's how we met. Like I said, I'd heard about Mike through some other guys in club. We were in the same club together, just a few years apart. So knew about him, but that's where we actually met, was at that Houston area-wide thing, and then doing things like Soul Link together and things like that. So it's kind of became good friends, and still trucking along, still doing Soul Link stuff.
That's right, man.
So, let's see. What advice would you give us as teens going through high school trying to do what's right?
Oh man, that's a tough one, and if my son were sitting in here, he'd be like, Dad, I don't want any dad advice, right? But you guys aren't my kids, so I can say it sounds cool, right? No. I would just say, hey, I know high school, like the culture, it seems super important to you. I remember being there myself, and it was just like my whole world is like my reputation. I just want to be normal, right? Most of you probably don't care about being like the most popular kid in school, but you definitely don't want to be the least popular kid. You want to be somewhere in the middle and just kind of blend in and be normal. But I really tell you, hey, that stuff, high school, it's like it goes by and it's over, and I mean, you may keep up with like one or two people from there, maybe. I talked to hardly anyone from when I was in high school, not because I don't like them. It's just I moved to a different city, whatever. What the point is those relationships, those friendships, they're not gonna. Most of them are gonna be very temporary, and so what the most popular kid in the school thinks about you or how that doesn't matter, because you're going to go off to college or go off to the military or go work somewhere, and you probably won't interact with them much at all ever again. Maybe occasionally at a reunion or something, and so the weight, and you'll think it's ridiculous. I promise you, when you get out of high school and you'll think back, man, I put so much stock in what so and so thought about me, and it didn't matter. They're just my peer. They're just like me. And even if you spend every day with that person for the rest of your life, that you just happen to get a job with them and you work, that's still nothing compared to eternity. So I would just encourage you, the only relationship that matters is that with Jesus Christ. I would just encourage you to focus on that. And when people insult you, just know that that's coming probably from a place of weakness, of their own self-worth. They don't feel good about themselves, so they have to put down someone else to make themselves feel better. Don't worry about that stuff. Pray for them. Encourage them. Be kind to them. Maybe you can be that light that they need. They can see Christ in you, and you can make an impact on their lives. So I'll turn off the dad switch now.
Good stuff. Let's see. I guess we did leave this one kind of open. Did your student live after he got shot? So.
Yeah, funny story. I guess, is it funny? Yeah. So we get there, right, and the kid got shot right in the throat, right? So you're thinking he's gonna die, right? But somehow, I don't know how he was standing or what, or if it ricocheted, but the bullet went in here and it came out the back of his shoulder. And they were like, the friends were like, oh, it was a drive-by, man. They just came in and shot one bullet.
Yeah.
And it was a drive-by, but turns out like a week later, the apartment where he got shot at, the surveillance footage came out, and it was actually another kid in our youth group that shot him on accident. He was playing with a gun, and it went off and shot through a wall and hit the kid in the throat. And so the moral of the story is, A, don't play with guns. That's number one. And B, don't hang around with people that play with guns. Unfortunately, the kid that shot the other kid, now the kid that got shot, he's alive and well. it took him a long time. He had to go a lot of rehab. His shoulder was like hunched over like this. He couldn't play basketball anymore for a long time, and it cost him his place on the team. But he's better now. He's a senior, and he's still coming to youth group. He's doing great. Now the other kid, unfortunately, he went down a wrong path, and he started robbing people, and now they've got him pinned with possible murder. So he's in prison. So say no to guns, kids. Unless you're hunting with Chris, it's okay. And your parents give consent.
Yeah. So, I remember being in this just surreal state, because it's like he's on the phone. And I can tell something bad has happened. One, I mean, someone calls you that late at night. It's nothing good. But you were just like so like calm and collected. Like, well, one of my students got shot and need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, I'll go with you. But I mean, it's just like the whole thing was just like, well, I mean, it'd be like, well, I stubbed my toe the other day. It's like, it was just, this is life. This is ministry. And,
unfortunately, about a month later, another kid in our group got shot. He was there at his brother's apartment. And some of his brother's friends came in to rob them and put the gun at his brother's face, and he didn't want his older brother to die, so he tried to wrestle the gun away from the guy. He got shot in the arm, but he's okay. And so just again, be careful who you let in your apartment, right?
Why are you always shooting?
Yeah. One of the reasons why I brought you on the show, you got some crazy stories, we don't get all that here in Kaufman, got to bring in people from Houston. All right, let's see. All right, someone wants to know if you ate any candy from the candy bowl from the green room before you came out here.
I mean, I thought about it, but like I said, I literally was sitting back there thinking I was going to just any minute just hurl. And so I had some Cheez-Its in my pocket, so I ate those, and I downed an entire bottle of water, and I'm still a little bit queasy. I apologize for the noise. Must have been the Cheez-Its. There's some Cheez-Its.
Well, it's more like they cut through there to go to the gym, and they're always like, hey, can I have some candy? Like, no, that's for the guests. Stay in the green room. All right, let's see. All right, here's a good one. So do you have any tips or, kind of talk about your journey through that, but on just how to get better, how to just kind of go through mentally and emotionally through losing your mother. So how do you get through something like that in your life?
Well, I mean, I'm sure Chris will tell you too, is like you're never going to get over something like that. I mean, you just don't. You're not going to be back to normal, quote unquote. You're not going to be back to the person you were before. And that's good and bad, right? The hurt is there. I was thinking about my mom earlier today. I heard a song that she liked come on the radio, and it reminded me of her. And I miss her a little bit. I wish I could give her a hug. But the good is that I have a lot of great memories with my mom, especially in those last few months. I'm so thankful I was able to take care of her, and my kids were able to live with her because my daughter was only 4 years old when she passed away, but she still remembers her because we were able to live with her for 3 months. And yeah, it hurts, but I'll tell you what, it would have been devastating to the point of suffocation if I didn't have hope in Christ, right? My hope in Christ makes it okay for me to breathe another breath. Because I know that this life is temporary, and you guys, it seems like life is forever. And I remember that, man. I just wish I could turn 16, right? You guys want to get your license or whatever, but the older you get, it's kind of like a snowball. It just keeps going faster. And I know this life is temporary, and I know one day I'm going to get to see my mom again and standing there next to Jesus, and I'm pumped about that. And so many other people that I have gone to heaven and I miss. And so you won't ever get over something like that, but it will shape you. And hopefully, like I said before, it can give you compassion for other people who've gone through similar situations. And it just reminds you, it makes you hungry for heaven, right? The older you get, you get more of that perspective. And the things of life aren't as important. This life, they're not as important as eternal life. So just hang in there. If you've been through something like that, find some people. Like I said, 2 are better than 1. Find some people you can talk to on those bad days when you're really missing them, and just say, "Hey, man, I need some prayers," or "Hey, sis, I need you to pray for me because I'm really sad right today." And they'll remind you, they'll encourage you, "Hey, heaven is around the corner, man, and we're all going to get there." So.
Do that. Well, Mike, thank you for being here tonight. Making the journey over.
Thanks for having me.
Sharing your life with us. Before we go, tonight we're going to play a game called Pumpkin or Spice. So we're going to play that right after this last commercial break. Y'all stick around.
Life is filled with choices, and those choices have consequences. Christmas break will be here before you know it, and you will have to choose what to do with all of your time off. Make the right choice and register today for the winter retreat. Anything else is just a waste of your time.
So we're about to go head-to-head in a game called Pumpkin or Spice. So this is how this works. We have a variety of pumpkin and spice items, tasty treats, and one of them is normal, and one of them has been spiced up by our stage manager, Kat. So Kat is going to bring those out to us. We have no idea which one is normal, which one is spicy. We will have to choose and then eat which one we choose. So tonight we have pumpkin pie, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin spice apple cider, pumpkin cake, and pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks. Not a sponsor. So the pumpkin pie is first. And Mike, I will let you choose since you are our guest. But after this, whoever wins each round gets to pick first the next time. So just set them on the table, and so you can just kind of choose which one of those you want. Okay. One of them is full of salsa or spicy hot sauce, and one is normal. So
I love pumpkin and I love salsa. I've never had them together.
There you
I'm
go.
just gonna go here.
Okay. All right.
Just see what happens.
All right. So we'll just at the same time we'll just.
I just got a question. Have you built up a natural immunity to?
I have not. I went to the Mexican meat market. I said I need the hottest salsa that you have, and they gave it to me. And then I was using a basting thing to like inject everything with. And then I was working on the slides and went to scratch my eye.
Oh no.
Yeah, bad idea.
Oh, no.
So
no.
I don't know how bad it is, but it's not good in your eye. So
I just also want to point out one thing. I noticed there's no like milk or water on the
no.
Okay.
We used all of our budget in all of the items that we got.
All right. Well, let's do this.
There we
Cheers.
go.
I'm feeling a little heat.
A little tingle there, a little spicy.
But it tastes really good.
Tastes really good though? All right.
Oh, here it comes. But I mean, I love pumpkin pie, so.
A little spicy pumpkin pie. There you go. All right. There it is. I don't know what happened there. 1-0 though. All right, number hot. Getting warmer now.
It's a little red.
All right, so now the muffin. So I won that one. So I don't know which. I guess I'll just do this one. Just
all right. Here's to 1 and 1.
The fact that the plate is moist underneath here, I think that's a bad idea. Yeah, look, got a little tingle to it. No zing, yeah.
That's nice.
All right, so we're tied up 1-1.
1-1.
So
Let's bring it up.
I think next we get a beverage. Kind of wash that down. Some
Okay.
pumpkin spice apple cider.
All things pumpkin.
So and you won that round, so you get to pick which one.
Well, they look identical.
They do. Well, that was kind of the point. We tried to make them.
Well, I didn't have luck on the left, so I'm just gonna. I mean, I don't know. I'm
Okay.
a luck person.
All right.
Here we go. Cheers
Here we go.
to.
See how it mixes with.
You're saying I'm in the lead?
Yeah. Have any sinus issues? That was a heavy load of salsa in that one.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
How did that affect the pumpkin taste? Did you taste it?
No pumpkin taste whatsoever. Pretty much was like I was sucking on a bottle of salsa right there.
You know, I'm gonna stick with the right.
This is the pumpkin cake. All right.
I mean, I did good on the right earlier, so
right.
I'm gonna go there again.
All right.
I'm seeing some moisture.
All right.
Oh yeah.
That's tasty.
Yeah. There's a little bit of heat in the middle of this.
All right. All right. For real.
I think the back of my tongue just went numb.
Well, that's good. So for the last round.
We'll see.
No. All right. Pumpkin spice.
Yeah, we're tied up 2-2, so I guess this is the winner take all here.
This is it. All right. So
Loser, lose it all.
of course the right did not work for you the last time, but this has been right more than well. So I'm gonna.
Okay. Cheers to.
All right.
2 is better than 1.
2 is better than 1.
Oh.
It's tasty.
Oh my.
You get it more in the drinks. Yeah. So.
Liquid fire.
Liquid fire. All right. So.
Let me come back
I guess
to
that
my
was it.
tomorrow.
All right. Give Mike a round of applause. Let's pray as we close out, guys. Father God, we thank you so much for everything you blessed us with. Father, we thank you for Mike and just all of the mighty and powerful ways that you have used him throughout his life and these last 20 years of ministry, and just pray that you will continue to pour over him and blessing over him and his family. Father, that you will bless him with many, many, many more years of ministry and just the impact that he has in the lives of students each and every day. Father, we thank you for the blessing of our brothers and sisters in Christ, those people that you bring into our lives that are our anchor, our strength, our encouragement. Father, those people that you use each and every day to just be your love and your mercy and your grace and your care in our daily lives. Father, help us to grow and build those deep relationships, those vital relationships with one another, Father. so that we can get through the trials of this world, that we can stay close to you, that we can draw one another closer to you and encourage one another and push one another towards you each and every day. It's in your son's name that we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, you have a good night. Thank you all for being here.